What's up, guys? I'm Mr. Gizmo. I'm here to teach you about the surface area of cones.
Woo! All right, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're gonna piece out on this little box here. Gizmo will make another appearance and probably teach a lesson sometime in the future. But for right now, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Alrighty, everyone. So back to it. I hope you enjoyed Gizmo's intro here. And so, like I said, we're going to be talking about the lateral surface area of lateral surface area and total surface area of cones. And so, just a reminder, your homework is to do the back of homework 903. And just a reminder, if you haven't done so today, make sure you sign into the attendance form so that me and your other teachers can mark you present. Otherwise, we're going to be obligated to mark you absent. And the other reminder is that we miss you so much. We wish we were back in school, but we know that this is the best for everyone's safety. Okay. So you're going to turn to day 4 of your notes and it looks like this, but we're going to be skipping around a little bit. And we're basically just going to be filling out this box over here. And so before I tell you how to find the surface area of a cone, I want to show you where that comes from. And so we're going to look at this diagram. So here's a picture of a cone, right? That's pretty obvious. It looks a lot like the one Gizmo was wearing on his head. And so, excuse me. The lateral surface area of the cone is just this part up here, right? So we're going to ignore that circle on the bottom for right now. So if we unravel this top part over here, this part, this circular part right here is actually the same, or the circumference, as the circle down there in that previous picture, which makes sense, right? And then in that diagram, what they do is they broke it up into little teeny tiny triangles like you can see here, right? And so when we break that up into little teeny tiny triangles and rearrange them to look like they do in this picture, that looks a lot like a rectangle, right? And so we know how to find the area of a rectangle, and you do that by doing length times width. So the length is pi r times the width, which is L. Now, L is a new letter that we might not have seen before, and L stands for the slant height. Okay, so that's part of our formula for finding the surface area of a cone. We still need to add on the bottom of that circle. So that means if we're going to add it, we add pi r squared because that's the formula for the area of a circle. And this is your formula for the total surface area of a cone. So what I want you to do is in your notes, I want you to go back over here to this page. And in that little box there, I want you to write this down. Pi r squared plus pi rl. I'm sorry, guys. Lexi's kind of going a little berserk right now. Cool. So now let's turn the page around and let's do some practice. I'm going to go ahead and write the formula up here again. So that's pi r squared plus pi r l. Now remember, L stands for slant height. Now this part right here will just give you your lateral area, and then this part right here is your base. So when we combine them, we get our total surface area. Okay. So example numbers 1 and 2 are pretty straightforward. They are core practice problems. But let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and do them together. So in that first one, we give you just about everything you need. Okay, so we have our radius, which is 7, and we have the height, but we need to figure out what the slant height is. And how do we find that? Correct. Pythagorean theorem. And the other thing you can do is if you remember your Pythagorean triples, your slant height is going to end up being 25. You'll also figure that out if you do it using Pythagorean theorem. So I'm going to take pi r squared plus pi r times the slant height. And I'm just going to go ahead and plug those values in. So the radius is 7 plus pi, and then 7, and your slant height is 25. And we're just going to go ahead and multiply that out. So 7 squared is 49, so I have 49 pi, plus 7 times 25 is 175 times pi. And we want our answer in terms of pi. Both of those terms have pi in them. So we're going to do 49 pi plus 175 pi, and that gets us to 24 pi. And that's it. Okay. Easy peasy. What I want you to do is hit pause on this video and go ahead and try the next one on your own. But be careful because they give you the diameter, not the radius. All right, welcome back. So again, they gave you the diameter, and that's 13 centimeters, which means that the radius is going to be half of that, and that's going to be 15. So again, I always like to write up the formula that I'm using so I know what numbers I'm plugging in where, and just to help keep my thoughts organized. So that's pi, the radius is 15 squared plus pi times 15, and the lateral surface area is 25. Very similar process to the one before. 15 squared is 225 pi. Plus 15 times 25 is 375, so I have 375 pi. And so when I add those two things together, I get a total surface area of 600 pi. Okay. Alrighty, so let's go ahead onto this one. So the lateral surface area of a cone for number 2 is 77 pi millimeters squared. If the diameter is 14 millimeters, what's the slant height? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and highlight what I know. So I know the lateral area is 77 pi, and I know that the diameter is 14. Okay, I'm not looking for the total surface area. So the total surface area, and I'm going to shorthand this, total surface area, that's what TSA stands for, not like the security at the airport, is pi r squared plus pi rl. If you remember, this pi r squared here, that was your base. That was the circle. That was the bottom of your cone. So I don't really care about that, right? Because that's information that I don't need right now. What I do know is the lateral surface area, and we labeled this above. This is going to be your lateral surface area. So your lateral surface area is 77 pi, and I set that equal to the formula for the lateral surface area, which is pi r/l. And then I'm going to go ahead and start plugging in what I know. So I've already plugged in the lateral surface area, and that's 77 pi. So 77 pi equals pi, and then they give us the diameter, which is 14 millimeters, and I can get the radius from that. So half of 14 is 7, so that's going to be 7, and I'm trying to find L. Your slant height, remember, is represented by the letter L. This is what I'm trying to find, and from there we just work backwards. So I have pi times 7 times slant height. So to undo that, or to get L by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 7 pi. That gets rid of it over here. Divide this side by 7 pi. Now I've got pi in my numerator and pi in my denominator, so that cancels out. Now 77 divided by 7 is 11, and that's your slant height. So your slant height is 11 millimeters, and you're done. Okay. Now down here, find the total surface area of the solid. Okay, so before we go ahead and start, I want you guys to write down a plan. And by a plan, I want you guys to write down, okay, what do I need to find? I need to find the lateral surface area of this shape, the lateral surface area of this shape, and the area of this shape. Okay, welcome back. So I see right now that I have a cone on top. Okay. So that tells me that I'm going to need the lateral surface area, of a cone, plus the lateral area of a cylinder. So plus the lateral area of a cylinder, plus the area of this circle down here. So plus the area of the circle. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and reach for the formulas that I need. So to find the lateral area of a cone, it's pi rl, plus lateral area of a cylinder is 2 pi r times the height, and area of a circle is pi r squared. Okay, so again, this is just what I'm using. This is my plan, and now I can go ahead and start plugging in numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and erase these colors. So it looks like all of these shapes have the same radius. If the diameter is 20, that means that the radius must be 10. Okay, so I've got pi times 10. Oh, and I don't know my slant height. Okay, so let's go over to the cone really quick. I do know the height of the cone, and the height of the cone is 10. And since I know that the height is 10 and that happens to be equivalent to the radius, I've got a 45, 45, 90 right triangle because remember, heights and bases are perpendicular to each other. And so I can reach for that ratio, and that means your slant height is going to be 10 root 2 because again, I am just looking in at this right triangle right here. Okay. So that slant height is 10 root 2 plus 2 pi. Now I'm going to go ahead and focus on the lateral area of the cylinder over here. So that's 2 pi, the same radius, which is 10. It looks like the height of the cylinder is 60. So that's going to be 60 plus, and now let's focus in on that circle on the bottom. So that's pi and then 10 squared. Okay, let's go ahead and multiply. 10 times 10 root 2 times pi is 100 root 2 times pi. Plus 2 times 10 times 60 is 1200 pi. Plus pi times 10 squared, that's 100 pi. Now the only like terms that I see here are 1200 pi and 100 pi. And so I can combine those. So that's 100 root 2 pi plus 1300 pi. And I can't combine that further because the 1300 pi does not have a root 2. So that's going to be your final answer. All right, let's turn the paper over and we're going to do 2 of these mixed practice problems. So before we go ahead and get started, I want you guys to hit pause on this video and I want you to try number 3A on your own. At the very least, write a plan for yourself. Okay, welcome back. So let's start off by writing a plan. So I see that the bottom of this shape here, the part that I just highlighted in yellow, is actually a rectangle. So I need to find the area of the rectangle. And I need to add it to 1/2 of the lateral surface area of the cylinder because I've got half of the cylinder. And I'm also going to add, and I have half circles on either end of that, but I've got 2 circles. So half of the area of 2 circles. So that's what that notation is standing for. Okay, now I'm going to start writing down my formula. So to find the area of a rectangle, that's base times height plus 1/2. Lateral surface area of a cylinder, again, is 2 pi r times the height plus 1/2. I've got 2 circles, and the area of a circle is pi r squared. Okay, so that's my plan. That's my template. Now I'm just going to go ahead and start plugging in numbers. So area of that rectangle is 6 times 8 plus 1/2 times 2 pi. The radius of that cylinder is going to be 3 because the diameter of it is 6. Now the height of the cylinder is going to be the same as the height of your rectangle, and so the height is going to be 8 plus 1/2 times 2 pi, and the radius again is 3 squared. Okay, so now that we've got all that written down, let's go ahead and multiply together. 6 times 8, walk through the gate, and that gets you 48. I could never remember that when I was in elementary school doing those math minutes, and so I made up that rhyme, and now I never forget what 6 times 8 is. And then I've got plus 1/2, 2 times pi times 3 times 8. So now here's a neat little trick here. I've got 1/2 on the outside and I've got 2 on the inside, and I'm multiplying all of these things together. So 1/2 times 2 is just going to be 1. So really I can just ignore that. That's going to cancel out. And then I'm left with pi times 3 times 8. So 3 times 8 is 24. So I'm left with 24 pi plus. And then if you look at that last part of our equation, I've got 1/2 again times 2. And so that's going to be 1. And I'm left with 1 times pi times 3 squared. Now 3 squared is 9, so I've got 9 pi here. So the only like terms I've got are these last 2 terms here, so I can combine those. So your final answer is 48 plus 33 pi. Okie dokes. Let's go ahead and do this last one. I have a feeling I'm going to need a lot more room here. And so I'm just going to create that. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a plan for ourselves. And before we get to our plan, I actually want us to label our picture. So it tells us the height is 10, the diameter is 4, the length is 8, and the width is 4. Okay, so I've got a rectangular prism here. Now, a rectangular prism has 6 faces. And I'm going to start off with this face right here. So I've got one here in yellow, and I've also got one on the other side. So I've got 2. So I've got 2 rectangles with dimensions 10 and 4. Okay. And then I've got 2 rectangles with dimensions 4 by 8. Okay, so there's one on top there, and then there's this pink one on the bottom. And then you've got this rectangle that I'm highlighting in blue. You've got 2 of those. So you've got 2 rectangles with dimensions 8 and 10. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and laid that out for us. Now I'm going to go ahead and start finding areas. So in that purple one, 10 times 4, that's 40. But I've got 2 of those. So 2 times 40 is going to give us 80. Let's move on to the pink one. 8 times 4 is 32. So that's the area of 1, but I've got 2 of those. So 2 times 32 is 64. And then in that last one, 10 times 8 is 80. But again, I've got 2 of those. So 2 times 80 is 160. So far, your total surface area of this figure should be 80 plus 64 plus 160. And that's going to get you 304. So far, this is our total surface area. Okay. But we have to get rid of this circle over here that they inconveniently cut out. Okay. So now let me go ahead and just zoom out a little bit. Okay. So the area of a circle is pi r squared, and they give us the diameter. So the diameter is 4, which means that the radius is going to be 2. So pi times 2 squared, so that's 4 pi. So they cut out from both of these faces a circle. So there's 2 of those, so there's really 2 circles. So I have 304 minus 2 times 4 pi, because again, those are 2 circles. So I have really 304 minus 8 pi. Okay. But here's the thing. We have to add this surface area in green that I'm about to highlight right here, because when we cut out that circle, we really are adding the lateral surface area of a cylinder. So now it just got a little more complicated, because now I have to add the lateral surface area of the cylinder. Okay, so I've got 304 minus 8 pi. Now the lateral surface area of a cylinder is 2 pi r times the height. So I've got 304 minus 8 pi plus 2 times pi, and then the radius is 2. The height of that cylinder is actually going to be the width. So the width is 4. And so the height of that cylinder is 4. So I really got 304 minus 8 pi plus 2 times 2 times 2 times 4. That's going to get you 16 pi. And then I can combine these last 2 terms. So negative 8 pi plus 16 pi is positive 8 pi. And so your total surface area for that figure that they just drew there is 304 plus 8 pi. Alrighty, guys, that's all I have for you today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email your teacher or come to office hours. We'd love to hear from you, even if it's just to say hi. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Okay, see ya.